When the Sylmar Community Plan is updated next, what would be your position on growth?
Land use and development is a very important topic. I have a background in land use. I'm an urban planner from Cal Poly Pomona. I got my graduate degree from there. I was also my neighborhood council's land use chair and vice president. I know how important it is to get the input of the people and the communities to be a part of the discussions. Sylmar is actually unique because it is one of the few communities in the city of Los Angeles that did get a community plan update in the last 20 years. What we need to do is make sure that we protect that community plan because it's what we all as a community came up and agreed to. We need to make sure that we protect our equestrian lifestyle. It is a unique lifestyle in our community, and we need to make sure that we don't lose it to the developers who'd love to come in and destroy it. We need to protect our oak trees in our communities. We need to protect our open space. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Sierra Club because I'm going to be fighting to protect our open space. The places that we need to the only places that growth is acceptable in our communities is the places around major transit. And major transit isn't the bus that comes around our community once every hour. It would only be if we got light rail in our neighborhoods. That would be the only places where growth would be appropriate. One other thing that I'm going to be introducing, if I have the opportunity to be your council member, is if a fire department response time isn't 6 minutes or less, a major development project cannot occur on that property until it's fixed. That will get the development community to be the largest advocates to getting us another fire station and getting our response times lower. We need to protect our open space. We need to oppose high-speed rail so that it doesn't destroy our communities, and I put that in the land use category also since it doesn't have its own. I'm Carl Terosian. I'm going to be fighting with you guys against the developers, and I'm going to be empowering our neighborhoods and our neighborhood councils. Our neighborhood councils know what they want in their neighborhoods, and we need to be able to empower them to have the ability.
David Barron, regarding land use. What you're not hearing and haven't heard about land use, I've been writing about it in social media and occasionally in the North Valley Reporter, which is a local newspaper, also on the internet, northvalleyreporter.com. Working at the housing department, we are major activists, or we're major proponent, not proponent, but perhaps active in the affordable housing business, development business. What's really going on is government is getting into the real estate development business using taxpayer funding to develop these properties for their special interest connected political supporters. And they give them more money than they need to build these projects. And with that extra money, those developers set aside some money and in turn buy the campaign ads for the elected officials when it's time for election. There's a bill from HUD, H-U-D. Villaraigosa hired Mercedes Marquez to work at the Los Angeles Housing Department. Then she went to HUD, and they came up with a plan. It's called Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Rule. What it says is to dismantle zoning laws. What we are doing here in Los Angeles, we are doing the same thing. The city council and the mayor are doing it through a program called Recode LA. And that is also to dismantle zoning laws, take away your property rights through additional bills through Sacramento. And I use this by utilizing the Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Hello. First of all, community plans need to be updated so much more than they are. And part of the reason that they aren't is because it's so difficult to do. It's a process that takes way too many hearings, and most of our community-specific plans for our district are over a decade old. And things change so dramatically and drastically that we need to be able to make this process a lot quicker. And I'm a big proponent of Measure S. That is going to be a huge asset to us and control developers in the city planning in Los Angeles. I would listen to neighborhood councils. I am now the president of the Sunland Hunga Neighborhood Council after 3 terms. I know what our threats are, and I know how to fight them. I also would hire 2 deputies that were specifically for land use, and they would go to every single neighborhood council land use committee meeting and be sure to report back and know exactly what the neighborhoods want, because no one knows a neighborhood like the people who live there. I would also seek land trusts and grants to work with nonprofits and private sector and make sure that our recreational opportunities are not taken away and protect against overdevelopment and protect our open space. I also would like to include more green space and try to have more pocket parks into our neighborhoods. Our vacant lots can be community gardens and things that are going to accentuate our neighborhoods and bring us green, cleaner air. I would also like to, of course, the high-speed rail cannot happen, and that's a biggie for development and land use. And so please remember number 69 on the ballot, Christy Clark, and please vote on March 7th. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Corwin. When it comes to land use development, I've been saying all along, you have to have the proper infrastructure. You have to do what the neighborhood wants or the community. I made a promise to someone a couple of months ago that if I got into office, that what I would do is I would have someone working in my office or myself going to every single land use committee meeting in the district. Again, as Christy said, you don't really know unless you live in the community what the community wants. That's important. Another part that's very important to me is infrastructure. And I know they're working on the general plan with the infrastructure, but what I'm concerned about is the underground infrastructure. When it flooded a couple of Fridays ago, I was driving by and took pictures of water coming up from the street, coming up from manholes. So the underground infrastructure needs help before we can think about how we're going to develop. As far as our area and the beauty of it, it's going to be up to the community on what you want. Are you for this? Are you against it? Do you have a good reason why? How are you going to support the infrastructure? Do you have schools? Do you have post office? Are you able to drive down the street? Are you going to be stopping or not being able to go anywhere because of new development? So I want to look at it all. I want to look at everything, but that infrastructure that nobody's really talking about or paying attention, that I took pictures of, the water coming from underneath, and yes, I know it was a huge flood. We don't normally get them, but we don't know if it's going to stay that way. And we all know, I believe, that most of the stuff underground is from 1932, okay? And but it doesn't last forever. So we need to take care of that issue too, as far as development goes. And that's pretty much how I stand on land use development.
We are not a discount community. And I say it for this reason. When I look at Sylmar, and I live in Sylmar, and when I see new developments, I see a Food for Less. I see DD's Discounts. I'm not knocking these businesses, but we are not a discount community. We have a community plan that is going through the process. The question says, how would we support the growth of this community? Well, there has to be a balance between the growth as well as addressing the maintenance of it, the upkeep of it. But let me go back to the growth. Were we involved in the conversation when Rouse decided to discount our community? Were we involved in the conversation when the shopping center up on Hubbard decided to have a DD's Discounts? Now, maybe some of you were, but see, I'm a stakeholder in Sylmar, and I was not involved in that conversation. And it is imperative that if we're going to have a community plan, that community plan is supported. And as a council, as your next council person, I will make sure that it is in alignment with the city, that the city stays in alignment with what we want. It's not about a developer coming into our community saying, I want to build over there. It's about us saying, you know what? We'd like to have a structure over there. But as a part of our community plan, it's more than just the structures. It is the infrastructure. How is that building going to impact parking? The residents that live in the building, what if they have guests and family members? I mean, there's a number of questions that need to be addressed in the community plan in terms of how the impact is going to resonate beyond that one building. And those developers will be beholden to us because it's our community. And for far too long, I've seen too many structures go up because of a council person who decided they wanted. So we will stand by our community plan.
So, so the question is, what would be your position on growth? And my position on growth is, my position is your position. So I'm not going to be voting for any growth that you have not approved of through your land use committees and possibly through surveys in the areas. I was at the neighborhood council the other day, and they were talking about how they have land use committee meetings, and those people are working really hard, right? They're there meeting at night for free, volunteers, talking about the issues. But when they reach out to the community is not always able to come to the land use committee meetings. And so one of the thoughts I had is, well, why don't we go survey the area around the development? Because you can easily go knock on the doors and say, how do you feel about that development that they're trying to do? And then you can get the information, and then you can vote the way that the community wants you to vote. I think one of the things we've seen historically is that actually the city council people historically vote the way the developer wants them to vote, not the way the voter wants them to vote. So I think it is actually time to take back City Hall and to vote for the voter and not the developer. So that would be my commitment to all of you. In terms of one of the things I heard that I thought was the saddest thing is when I was walking doors in Sylmar and I was knocking on doors and I was talking to people, one of the things I heard somebody say was they were thinking about leaving. They'd lived in Sylmar their entire life, and they were thinking about leaving Sylmar. And when you said why, well, I did. I said, why? Why are you thinking about leaving? They were tired. They were just tired. They felt that the community was not going in the direction that they wanted. They were tired of having to drive out of the community to like buy things. You know, they were talking about going to Northridge to go shopping and things like that. And so I think it's time for us to have the community reflect what the community wants. And so that is definitely going to be part of the community plan aspect. But the community plan at this point now has been sitting on a shelf for a while. So the question is, how do we get the community plan updated in an appropriate fashion so it actually represents what people want and people don't leave Sylmar? Because that is a very sad thing when people who've dedicated their life to this area, bought homes here, raised their families, have to leave.
You know, for years I traveled for DOD and traveled all over the country to a lot of cities. And one of the things that I noticed, that you go to places like Ocotillo, which is outside of Phoenix, go to Denver, even Gilbert, which used to be kind of a downtrodden place outside of Phoenix. And when they build these communities, you know, they put in horse trails, they put in jogging trails, they put in bike paths. And when you build a community with that in mind, as the community gets older, it gets increased in value. And so, you know, it does start right from the beginning. And I've reviewed a lot of these plans. You asked specifically about the Sylmar plan. I believe in responsible development. That's something we haven't seen in a long, long time. I believe in the plans. I'm a person of rules. And so the most important thing is that we get the plans updated and then we stick to them. You know, we have a lot of these plans that are grossly outdated, and that's a convenient excuse to provide a lot of these spot approvals that we're doing that we should never do. If you don't like the plan, change the plan. If you don't like the rules, you think they're inappropriate, change the rules. But that's not an excuse for going around the rules. So I feel very strongly that, you know, the biggest problem we have is not the rules, it's getting people to follow them. And, you know, one of the threats I see, and the closer I get to this, it's really scary that, you know, if people are politically motivated that this is a career, and, you know, and our true politicians, and even those that are some of them that are seeking the job, what motivates them is truly going out and trying to pander to everybody's needs. And that makes them very vulnerable also to the developers. They got to have money to provide these things. Everything's above board. There's nothing under board. But it makes these people very, you know, reluctant to do any real changes. So I want to absolutely, and I've said all along, that I want people at the neighborhood council meetings, I want people in the land use committees, I want people at the Chamber of Commerce meetings, but that's because I want data. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, let's start one more time. Who here is in a neighborhood council? Who here? Folks, you got to be involved. You got to have a voice. Vote, have a voice. Please have a voice. Sylmar is your city. You're supposed to say how much it grows and where it grows. I agree with that. That's got to be the way it is. I get equestrians coming to me. I got a house growing up next to my place here. I've had horses my whole life. I said, are you licensed? Well, no. Are you involved? Well, no, but I don't want them to do that. if they were involved and they'd started with their voice, it could have stopped it at planning. The point is that we're supposed to be the in charge of our own destiny. A really smart person told me this one time, and I'm going to read it because I always like to get this right. Communities are saved or destroyed one parcel at a time. It takes a tremendous amount of expertise, research, and effort to make sure nothing inappropriate happens. Look, developers have already rezoned so many parcels of land it would take decades to finance and build them all. No more Samoa projects, no more putting apartments in areas that are already stressed with street parking. So I'm going to say this again all night. Everything goes back to your voice, and I will fight for what you want. I went short, but thank you.
I'm a proponent of Measure S, and I think that that is going to help to arrest the decline that we have right now with the spot zoning issues for now. And as soon as I get in office, first of all, I'm going to be protecting that measure and any hawks that come in to try and pick it apart. In addition to that, because I'm fairly sure that's going to go through. If it doesn't go through, I'll still be in favor of it, picking apart anybody who tries to disrupt this community with spot zoning, the kind of which I'm sure you've got all over this community. There's a lot of open spaces, and there's a lot of open spaces that are actually ownable but not owned, or being sat on for a long time, et cetera, and kind of an easy mark, seeming an easy mark for this. Getting for instance, there's a 240 apartment complex being built on Big Tahunga Canyon Road, right near the open land, and they're zoned for one ranch. That's it. So that's it. That's not going to happen. In my opinion, I'm going to protect the Constitution, and the Constitution talks about the right of all of us to have property and safety and this kind of thing, and that is my viewpoint about interfering with the codes. Those codes need to be fixed fast, and that's what I'm all for.
Again, working with the congressman in the past for this community was a very educating experience for me. When we wanted to, increase and bring resources out to the Sylmar neighborhood, we'd work closely with the councilman's office, and they would tell us what projects needed some additional federal funding to come to fruition. But then I would do my due diligence and start talking to members of the community, and found out that the community wasn't behind it. So I would smartly tell my boss, let's not fund that. We don't want to be caught up in that mess with the city and the residents. So from that perspective, like other candidates have said, we need the answers from you, and we need to work for you and with you, not develop for the developers, and not do these projects because of the developers. There's a beautiful community out here in the hills behind us, but I hate every morning seeing that traffic coming out and that traffic going in. That's one reason why I wouldn't buy up there. It takes a long time to come out of that community through Maclay and the other street of, I guess they come this way, they go down Hubbard. So it's crazy. It wasn't planned properly. I think it was planned poorly for people to go in and out with all that new housing back there. And that's just my layman opinion. But the main thing is that it has to be done cohesively with the neighborhood councils, with the people living here, and how it affects you. I mean, every community is uniquely different. I live in Mission Hills today. I live next to a freeway, so I get on and off real quick, real convenient. Can't do that here. But like it was said, we have, people want to go places, go to the movies, go to restaurants. Well, there are fine restaurants here. Like this lady's restaurant is very popular. I went in there the other day to try to go and eat, even though she had Monica signs all over the place. But there was no parking. And you had a line of people going in there. But I wanted to try your food and say, I'm Fred Flores. But you couldn't because there was no parking there.